Yeah, we have to use that division rule. So, if it was me, I'd probably go ahead and do 57 divided by 3, which is 19. The x's I already know, 4 minus 1, so that's gonna give me x to the third. Y'all okay there? And then you can look at this however you want to. I would look at it as negative 2 minus negative 3, which becomes a positive 3, which gives you a net power of positive 1. Does that make sense? So however you want to do that. Y'all, like, if I was doing this in Algebra 1, I'd make them write it all out in multiple steps. Y'all, I think y'all can probably do that in your head, okay? Or you say, okay, well, both those would flip, and I'd have 3 minus 2, which is still 1. However y'all want to look at it, doesn't matter to me. And then, so now I have this. Because they match, I can go ahead and do the subtraction. So 19 minus 11 gives you 8x to the third y. So I said, I'm not going to make you do it any specific way. It's really y'all's preference because there's more than one way. Let's look at 5. So I would probably, if it was me, I would go ahead and move this r to the bottom because I know I'm going to have to work this out over here. So if it was me, I would probably rewrite this as 3s to the 5th over 4, and then r squared on the bottom is positive. So I get rid of the negative. Does that make sense to y'all? And then we're going to multiply that. So then this one, my negative is going to become positive because it's squared. So that becomes 16 r to the 6th s squared. And if you want to write it over 1, that may make it a little easier for you. So I'd probably do, numerically, I'd probably look at 16 divides by 4 evenly, which leaves you with 4 times 3 gives you 12. Y'all okay there? So 12, and then it looks like r 6 on top, 2 on bottom, so r to the 4th, and s to the 7. All good there? Okay. No questions, y'all all good? Okay. Alright, let's go to, I'm going to jump down to 8 down here. What do we have to deal with first here? Yeah, I've got to get these exponents out of there. So would y'all prefer to just multiply the negative 2 into everything and give it its power? Do you want to flip things over? How do you want to do that? Doesn't matter to me, I'm just curious. And then you substitute fraction, how do you want to do it? Or we can, let's deal with this, let's write this one, we'll do it right down here. Okay, so if I have 1/2 to the third, that's 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, what's this going to give me? Over 8. M, let's see, negative 2 times 3 is going to be m to the negative 6, so if I write it on the bottom, it'd be positive 6. Y'all okay there? And then n looks like to the 9th on top. So that's the first fraction. I think I'm going to simplify this over here to the side first for y'all. Okay with that? Alright, so if I have 1/8 to the negative 2, that means the 8 needs to flip over to have that be a positive. Does that make sense to y'all? So 8 squared is 64. So I think we need to flip over and be a 64 on top. Does that make sense to y'all? Okay. So 64 up here. And then m negative 1 times negative 2 gives you m to the positive 2. And then 4 times negative 2 would be negative 8, but I can move it to the bottom, so m to the 8th on the bottom. Are y'all alright with that? Okay. So I'll probably put this stuff over here. I'm going to rewrite it down here. You don't have to if you don't want to. Alright, so now I'm going to simplify that. So what's that going to give us? Numerically, what do we got? 64 divided by 8. Okay, yeah, and it'll be on top. So A. What about m? Top or bottom? It'll be on the bottom. So m to the what's that? 4 on bottom. All right, and n we've got single n on top. questions at all? Everybody's pretty comfortable? Get the cobwebs out. All right, so we're gonna kind of talk about like classifying polynomials. We've done this before. Your standard form, we write with exponents in descending order. I'm just gonna kind of fill this table out pretty quick for y'all. So if we have a 0 power, that's your numerical value. It's called a constant. If we have the first power, it would form a linear graph. If it was x squared, it would be quadratic. If it was x to the third, it would be cubic. X to the fourth would be quartic. X to the fifth would be quintic. Everybody should be comfortable with those. We didn't really do x to the fourth, x to the fifth very much last year, but briefly we kind of, I think we did x to the fourth briefly. Yes, I think. Okay. All right, and then by number of terms, if it has a single term, it would be a monomial. 2 terms would be binomial. 3 terms would be trinomial. And anything that is more than that is polynomial. They don't need special names. All right, so this section right here, they want you to classify it, simplify it, and then classify them. We'll just look at 9. I'll do 1 addition, and I'll probably do 9 and 11. Is that okay with y'all? Okay, so that looks like 9b squared plus 3b minus 18. Assuming y'all can do that fine. All right, so they want us to classify it both by degree and number of terms. So degree would be quadratic. I'm not going to write that all the way out. And then it has 3 terms, so it would be a trinomial. I'm also not writing that all the way out. When you do that on assignment, you can do the same thing. Like I'm fine with abbreviation. You don't have to write those all the way out. Y'all comfortable there? All right, this one, what happens when I have this subtraction in between the 2 parentheses? Yeah, all these signs are going to change, so I'm pretty sure y'all can do that in your head. So I've got my greatest degree is y cubed, so I have a positive y cubed, and this becomes a positive 3y cubed, so that gives me 4y cubed. Y squared, I've got negative 3, and now negative 4, so negative 7. Y squared minus y, is that minus 2? Okay, so by degree, we would be cubic, and by number of terms, looks like it's just being poly. All good there? Okay. Any questions on any of that, or y'all are pretty comfortable, yeah? Okay. These down here, multiplying, I know y'all know how to do that, so I'm not gonna spend a bunch of time on this, like working those out. Y'all know how to FOIL, like y'all been doing this. This one, if you wanted to do it as stacked multiplication, or if you wanted to list it out horizontally, I don't care, that's your choice. Everybody comfortable with what I'm saying there? What happens with this one? If I square this and square this? No, I would need to write them both down. I'm just kind of going through real quick, so as a reminder in case we forget. That means I've got to multiply them out and I've got to FOIL it. This one over here, I'm not gonna work it out, but like, I would probably FOIL one of them first. I mean, you kinda have to. FOIL one, get you that trinomial, then do the double distribution. So I think y'all are fine there. Let's do this one right here, and I'm gonna stack it. We're not gonna work this problem right here because that takes up too much space. So I'm gonna stack it. If you'd rather write horizontal, you can write over into that box if you need to, because we're not gonna work that problem. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm gonna use stack, so p squared times p, and I'm gonna change that to x. It's gonna give us x to the 4th, and then x squared, and negative 2x is gonna be negative 2x cubed, and looks like plus x squared. All good there? And then I'm gonna go to the, I took care of that, so now I'm going to this one, so that gives me, looks like x cubed minus 2x squared plus x, all good there. And negative 6x squared plus 12x minus 6, and then I have x to the 4. Y'all get what I got? It does ask us to classify that, so that would be a quartic polynomial. So, everybody comfortable on that one? Did y'all get the same thing? Do y'all stack or do y'all do horizontal? Stack, okay. It takes up a little less space. Kind of depends on, like with this one, I might would do horizontal just because it has a big one box, but whatever y'all want to do, doesn't matter to me. This one right here, they give us a triangle with a base of 3x plus 7. Triangle with a base of 3x plus 7, and then a height of 5x minus 1. I'm going to work this all the way up to make sure you're okay. And then it says a second triangle is drawn with a base that is tripled. And then the height is doubled, which means you have to put a 3 in front of that and 2 in front of that. I think y'all will be fine there. And then once you know the difference, so I'm gonna set the problem up, but I'm not gonna work it out. Does that make sense? All right. So what's the area for a triangle? 1/2 base times height. Okay. And the second one, if we're tripling and we're doubling, obviously it's the bigger triangle, right? So if I had my first triangle, I would have 1/2 times 3x plus 7 times 5x minus 1, right? And I'd work all that out. And I probably would FOIL this first before I took the half in hopes that that 2 would cancel with everything. Because I think it probably does. Like once you multiply those odds become evens and then you divide those two out. If I did my second, then I'm going to have this 1/2 times 3. I've got like a double parentheses here because it's 3 times the base, right? Know what it says? 3x plus 7, and then that's going to be multiplied times double the height, 5x minus 1. So it looks something like that, right? Y'all okay there? So what we have to remember, what sometimes will trip us up on a problem like this, is when I subtract, whenever I get this, I actually think I'm going to multiply this one out, just to make sure we're okay there. Not doing multiplication with the other part. 3x and 5x. 15x squared. So that half isn't very nice at all. Okay. So the reason I wanted to do this is because when we do this right here and we're going to subtract this, I'm not going to work this all the way out. Like y'all can do fractions and stuff in your calculators. I'm not going to waste a lot of time with that. But when we subtract this, we would need to subtract whatever this comes out to be inside of parentheses. Does that make sense? Is that logical to y'all? Want to say it then? Because if we don't, the key is putting that parentheses around that. Because if I don't put that parentheses around that second one, and I get 15/2 right there, and I didn't put a parentheses there, I'm going to have minus 15/2 x, but I'm not going to catch the minus 16x or the plus 7/2. Does that make sense? So just make sure you're really careful because you probably have a problem like that. Logical?